So there are a few Amazon Lambda limits you need to know for the exam. The first one is around the execution. The memory allocation can go from 128 megabyte to 3008 megabyte, and it goes into 64 megabyte increments. The second is that the execution time can go all the way to 300 seconds, which is 5 minutes. So sometimes the exam will say, hey, we'd like to run our Lambda function for 15 minutes, but it fails after 5 minutes. What's the problem? Well, we just hit a Lambda limit. The disk capacity in a function container in the /tmp directory is writable, and you can write up to 512 megabytes of stuff. So if you wanted to pull images, databases, datasets, whatever you want, you could write up to half a gigabyte of data into the /tmp directory. Finally, the concurrency limit, but you can improve it and through a support ticket, is 1000 Lambda functions that can concurrently execute. Okay, this is for execution. Now for deployment. When you deploy a Lambda function, you basically upload a zip file onto AWS. And so there is a requirement that the compressed zip file is 50 megabyte maximum. It doesn't matter if you compress a zip of a zip, it's just one zip, and compressed it must be 50 megabytes. And now when you uncompress it, okay, so when you uncompress the zip file which contains your code and your dependencies, the maximum size can be 250 megabytes. And so this is the limit. That's quite interesting. If you get some error messages, you need to understand whether or not your code was too small or too big, and then when you was uncompressed, was it even bigger than 250 megabytes? Finally, if you wanted to go over that limit, okay, this 250 megabytes, you could load files or dependencies at startup and write to that /tmp directory. And so that gives you potentially a little bit more space to work with in AWS Lambda. Finally, your environment variables are pretty small. It's up to 4 kilobytes of data, so you can't store whole files in your environment variables. It's just something that's good to know. So the exam will basically ask you, hey, there was a Lambda error, what was up? And so you need to understand if it was a limit or not. So have a good look at these limits. They basically are very, very important to know in AWS Lambda. And I will see you in the next lecture.